What's going on, Vigilante World? It's your guy SPEC Civilian, and we back with another video. First things first, I want to give a shout out to all my viewers, subscribers, and Patreon supporters for making this a home to catch some content before you make a purchase. Big shout out to BCA for sponsoring the channel, allowing me to feed my firearms to bring you content. Be sure to click on the link in the description and rack up some rounds. For all my parts junkies out there, be sure to check in with the link below to receive parts lists and newsletters. In today's video, we're actually going to be diving into the P10 Ghost Recon Master build featuring the Cyelee Ghost Optic. Big shout out to Cyelee for allowing me to review this optic and give you all a little bit something different to actually see. And honestly, it has a bunch of really cool features that I'm actually excited to talk about. So let's get into it. All right, Vigilante World, let's get into what you get out of the Cyelee Optics Ghost. Now, one thing that's really cool about this one is that it is an RMR footprint. You will have to find another proprietary footprint if you are running something else, but if you are running RMR stuff, then by all means, this should fit perfect. So I know for a fact people will end up liking this, and as you see, it is kind of set up like an SRO of some sort, so you will like that if you are looking for kind of a little bit more of a replacement for something like that, or something that may be just a little bit bigger than an RMR. Now, right out of the box, you actually end up getting your main cleaning stuff, how to zero your overall optic, your main calibration stuff, as well as do's and don'ts, so that people can definitely make sure you know exactly how to run your optic. So appreciate Cyelee, but also you get a bunch of screws. They literally give you a mound of screws, so you can make this thing fit whatever slide that you have. Since they have different measurements, you will need to know exactly what screw size you need to mount it onto your optic, but they do give you a lot of options, which is cool. And so that's kind of what you get out of the box. We're gonna go ahead and set that to the side, and we're gonna get to this thing. Now, real quick, safety check. As you can see, definitely a good replacement for something like an SRO. Has the RMR footprint and honestly sits super low, just like the SRO does. And that's honestly why I opted to go ahead and put this optic on this slide specifically, just because it sits right on top of the slide. That way it can sit a little bit lower to the bore and be a little bit more accurate whenever I'm zeroing the gun, which actually ended up working out really well in the zeroing process. And so one thing I can appreciate about the overall design and being able to actually have something that's spec'd out nice and actually sits super flush to the slide, so you know for a fact you have a very clean fitment on the gun from the overall optic. Now, it does add a little bit more durability because it does have that 775 T6 aluminum that has the inner and outer rails on it. If you do need to actually run this thing off of something, you're not having to really worry about hitting your optic or banging up your optic. Even if you are just needing to rack a solid round, you don't really have to worry about smearing up your optic too much, or even just touching your lens so you would throw off your overall reticle. One thing that's, I think, considered for the design for this, and I definitely appreciate that from the Ghost Optic. Now, one thing that's really cool as well is that you get some easy functions on the exterior of the gun. You have easy on, easy off, and even then, right now, as you can see, it is on. If you press this little down button about 6 seconds, booyah, it's off. Or you can just easily press the up button, right back on. Now, you do get 3 reticles. You get a 2 MOA, you get a 26 MOA, and then you have both of them together. Something that I think is really nice because this actually gives you some really, really cool options. And as you switch in between those reticles, you'll be able to see that dot kind of blow up. Since we're on the camera, of course, you know it's not going to show the exact dot, but just know whenever you're actually looking at the reticles, it's going to look something very much so similar to the ones that they have on here. So like I said, they have a 2 MOA and a 26 MOA. For me personally, I actually enjoy the solo dot because I'm actually running this thing co-witness. Just makes it easy and not too clustered when I'm trying to pick up the overall dot. I think a lot of people will appreciate at least having the options. That way, if you're not running an optic, or even if you're running an optic with co-witness and the co-witness sights are maybe even a little bit lower, then you know for a fact you can kind of grab that sight acquisition a little bit faster. Again, one thing to appreciate about the options from the Ghost specifically. Now, even with making adjustments, it is 1-click MOA, so it is very easy to make sure you can calibrate your dot, get everything zeroed whenever you're at the range. And on top of that, it has about 50,000 hours of life, so you know for a fact it can be up to par with all your other optics. You don't really have to worry about this thing dying out before you actually get it zeroed. Now, this optic specifically is made more for duty and more for carry, but you can definitely run this thing in competition. I even decided to do a couple of things myself. Now, it does have ret lock on it, or you do have options for an anti-press engage lock mode to make sure you know for a fact you don't have to worry about this thing switching to something else, or you're putting this thing in a holster or putting this thing in a bag or something like that. You know for a fact your dot's going to remain the same, so whenever you present, it's not going to be unfamiliar, and you know for a fact you can be comfortable. Now this thing is drop proof up to about 6 feet, and honestly, as you see with having those rails, you know for a fact you won't be able to knock out the glass or the lens too much. But if you are going to be doing something super heavy, you know, super damaging to your gun, you have about 6 feet before you really get to do any damage on this thing. And honestly, I've seen some people really take this thing through a torture and it really hold up. So I would say you probably have closer to about 6 to 8 feet, just to be honest with you. But at the end of the day, just to know that you have something that's a little bit more durable makes it super nice. Now, as you see, it definitely does have that nice ghost logo on the side with those smiling teeth with the dripping mouth. So you know for a fact this thing is mean. Now, that's kind of the main things that you get out of the box from the Cyelee optic. So let's get off the mat. Let's talk about it. Back to it. So as you've seen, this build comes with a bunch of really cool features, and the optic specifically has so much to offer, definitely to be like half the cost of a lot of really good optics out there. The thing is actually up to par with those, and I'm actually going to get into that once we jump into the performance. But the fact that you get all of these features as far as durability, being able to have it fully submersive, makes it very quality for, again, an optic that typically you can catch for about half the cost of the others. Now, in terms of performance, now I was able to send the target back about 10 yards, and it was super easy to really just kind of be able to group. Definitely once I got this thing zeroed, it was just super fun whether I had a comp or not. You definitely get to feel the recoil mitigation whenever you do have the comp, but even if you don't, the gun is set up to where you can really just have some fun. And like I said, picking up the optic upon draw makes it super smooth. And not only that, the dot doesn't shake around a lot, it doesn't move around a lot. You really actually get a pretty steady, firm point of aim to where you can know you can just go ahead and let your shots go. So it made it super easy to go ahead and group, definitely within a self-defense distance. Of course, I was able to go ahead and shoot the target back to about 60 yards, and it was super nice to keep up with the dot and know for a fact I can still hit most of my shots or get majority of my shots right on target, to where I can kind of see where I was actually aiming at. Definitely for it to have it zeroed a little bit closer, but even then, picking up the dot, knowing for a fact at a farther target, you don't have to worry about as much shiftiness in the overall dot. It's super steady when you're looking at a further target, which ends up being a little bit smaller, but makes the dot a little bit bigger, if you know what I'm saying. So that's kind of the one thing, is whenever you are kind of co-witnessing the overall dot with that target, you do get to see how much movement is in the overall dot. And honestly, for this gun, definitely at a longer distance, it really does a good job in making sure that it can be stable enough for you to really just worry about pulling the trigger and hitting the target. Now, mag dumps with this thing are super fun, and with having an optic that has a little bit more steady of a reticle, you know for a fact you can easily pick it back up and kind of make sure you can replace that zero dot and go ahead and let the next round off. And so again, it aids into the overall accuracy of your overall group. That way you know for a fact not only are you mitigating recoil with however you are gripping the gun or however your build is set up, but even when you're just looking at the dot, it can re-zero pretty easy and you can go ahead and get those next rounds off. Now, reloads with this thing are super sweet, definitely because it has that nice mag well on it, so you can easily just feed in those mags super easy. But even when you're dropping the mag, feeding in the new mag, and then getting back into your overall sight acquisition, it's super easy to pick up the overall optic. Definitely with having co-witnessed irons, it makes it super easy, definitely for this gun or for this build specifically, to really be able to pick up those next things. But honestly, again, once you kind of find your dot for this specific optic, you can just go ahead and let that thing go. And so really being able to reload and get back on target was super easy. And if you do need to, you know, find your dot a little bit easier, having the co-witnessed irons makes it that much easier, because you can always kind of align your irons and then find your dot. And then once you kind of tag onto your dot, you know for a fact you can kind of keep it going from there. And that's honestly some things that I was actually working on with this gun specifically, or with this build specifically, because with my main competition gun, we do not run any type of irons. It's all optic. So having something like this that I could actually play with the irons and the optic makes it super easy. And again, I could see just how easy it was to revisit the overall optic reticle and then be able to stay on target from there, and it was super fun. All in all, the build was super solid, and the optic presented so much of a great experience, just being able to have something that was different, that I really honestly knocked initially. I didn't know how it was going to be having such a heavier optic on this type of gun, but honestly it worked out perfect with having so much of a lighter slide. It's like all the weight got taken off the slide, put into the optic, and
and rebalance the gun. So that was one thing that I actually appreciated, because again, I didn't have any preconceived notions or anything like that specifically. I just didn't know anything about the overall optic or how it was going to run. So of course, having some other optics that I've tried before and then looking into this one, I really had a bar that I had set. This thing actually exceeding that bar and showing me that it can be up to par, but not only that, still offer so many other cool options is one thing that I definitely appreciate out of having an optic like this. It was super sweet to go ahead and test out this optic specifically and be able to kind of understand all of the features that this thing comes with. And honestly, like I said, a little bit later, if y'all want to get into some more of the durability testing and things like that, I'm more than happy to go ahead and have an experience definitely running this thing through a couple trials and things like that. But I always like to see just how good the optic is in terms of accuracy and being able to overall zero the thing and then use it for specific uses that I like to get into, like competition and self-defense training. It was absolutely amazing, and being able to make sure that I could go ahead and go out and slap some rounds out. Anybody that actually has any type of gun could really use this type of optic, because it has such a nice window on it to where you know for a fact you can literally throw it on a shotgun, you can throw it on a rifle, you can throw it on a pistol. And so for me specifically, I'm a pistol guy, so it made it easy for me to take this thing right out to the range and just go have some fun. Definitely be on the lookout for some competition trials with this specific build. You can get this optic for half the cost of a lot of other premium optics. Now this optic has an MSRP of $282, so you can get this thing for less than 300 bucks and know for a fact, again, you have something that is super durable and it can keep up with any other optic that's out there and offers plenty in terms of durability and making sure that you don't have to really worry about dropping this thing, breaking this thing, and you can really keep it going. The way this thing is set up really allows people to have all you need for duty and carry, and the fact that they do have a couple reticle options makes it that much smoother to be able to take this thing into other stages and really have that same confidence to just shoot this gun. So super amazing, and I appreciate again Cyelee Optic for allowing me to go ahead and review this optic. If you did like this build, definitely make sure you smash that like button. If you have any comments or anything like that, definitely make sure you drop them down below. I love to hear what y'all think about other optics that are out there, things that are a little bit different than all your main essential optics or main primary optics, things like this that do offer a little bit of a difference in making sure you can cover a bunch of bases but have a little bit of a cheaper option and making sure you can still go out and have some fun. So if y'all have anything like that, definitely make sure to drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear about that type of stuff and we can chat about it a little bit later. Definitely make sure you subscribe. I got much more content in the vault. I've been going through a massive change specifically for the channel so I can make sure I can fund a bunch of really cool stuff for the channel. So definitely make sure to stay tuned. Other than that, all I gotta say is stay safe, get some ammo. Till next time, y'all.